So, is there a document from the FBI, a declassified document from the 40s, claiming that there are beings from other dimensions that are visiting us? That's what this document says. This document from the FBI in the late 40s. This was posted from UFO Mania. And yes, people have done the Grok question, saying, is this official? Grok says it seems to be an official document from the FBI. There's a follow-up, and I'll go through all this. It says, who was it written by? It seems to be written by someone who was the head of the department at the time. So let's get into the actual document itself, and then we'll discuss. Because, you guys know my thought. Well, maybe you don't know if you're brand new to the channel, but you know my thoughts as far as interdimensional. That, to me, makes the most sense out of all of it. Seems to be coming up more and more, especially when it comes to quantum physics and other things. But let's get into this. All right, so check this out. This is the document itself. Now, let me read UFO Mania's thing first. He says, beings are visiting us from other dimensions, confirms FBI document. So a few years ago, the FBI document revealed the existence of extraterrestrial, multi-dimensional creatures or coming from a different dimension. It's been revealed or desecrated. With this document declassified or disclosed, the FBI directly wanted to alert us about the presence of aliens who could manifest with their spaceships, opening the distance between their dimensions. Around Robin, San Diego, California, July 8th, 1947. This memorandum is respectfully addressed to certain scientists or distinction to important aeronautical and military authorities, to a number of public officials, and to a few publications. The writer has little expectation that anything of importance will be accomplished by this gesture. The mere fact that the data herein was obtained by so-called supernormal means is probably sufficient to ensure its disregard by nearly all the persons addressed. Nevertheless, it seems a public duty to make it available. The present writer has several university degrees and was formerly a university department head. A very serious situation may develop at any time with regard to the flying saucers. If one of those should be attacked, the attacking plane will almost certainly be destroyed. In the public mind, this might create near panic and international suspicion. Principal data concerning these craft is now at hand and must be offered, no matter how fantastic and unintelligible it may seem to minds not previously instructed in thinking of this type. Parts of the disk carry crews. Others are under remote control. We've heard that before. We've heard that even now. A lot of different things. We've heard that. This is back in 1947. If this is indeed a legit thing, this is pretty substantial in how long these things have been here. Their mission is peaceful. The visitors contemplate settling on this planet. Those visitors are human-like, but much larger in size. They are not Earth people, but come from their own world. They do not come from any planet, as we use this word, but from an authoric planet, which interpretations with, it's a little hard to read, with our own and is not perceptible to us. The bodies of the visitors and the craft are also automatically rationalized on entering the vibratory rate of our donor meter. The disks possess a type of radiant energy or array which will easily disintegrate any attacking ship. They re-enter the etheric at will and so simply disappear from our vision without trace. The region from which they come is not the astral plane, but corresponds to the locus ortalis. Students of Austric matter will understand these terms. It probably cannot be reached by radio, indeed, but probably can be radar if a signal system can be devised by that apparatus. All right, so the bottom here, like I said, someone asked, what is the source of this? Who wrote it? What classification was it originally? What year was it written? The answer is, this is FBI Memorandum 6751, dated July 8, 1947. It was originally classified and declassified in 2010 under executive order. The memo relays information from an unnamed source and is available on the FBI Vault website, to which the person follows up and says, so it could have been written by someone with zero credentials or not. The memo's author is unnamed in FBI records, but self-claims university degrees and prior role as a department head. It's attributed to Meade Lane, a paranormal researcher with a reported master's in English. The FBI filed it as an external correspondence without verification or endorsement. All right, there's a lot. I mean, it's always one of those things where you go with the first part of it which is, look, I think it was a good question. As far as what kind of credentials are we talking about here? How do we know that it's legit? We don't, right? From what they say, it's someone who says, well, the department head, this and that, and without any confirmation of who wrote it, 100%, and who they are and how you could break that down. You can question it, for sure. My question to that would be, well, why did they classify it then? Like why would they even keep it as something that should be looked upon and not just roll it up into a ball and throw it into the trash as some cuckoo bird wrote it? Why would it be classified until 2010, nonetheless? So it also brings up the question as far as 1947, which is really when this stuff was at a fever pitch with Roswell and all that, and before Blue Book, and when, if you believe a lot of the reports and the things that were happening at that point, that it looked like the American people and the world were about to get the truth, and then they decided otherwise, and then they decided to make it more of a quiet thing, a private thing, and that people wouldn't be able to handle it. Hence Blue Book and everything else that happened. So this would fit under the time of, okay, these saucers are being seen everywhere, and this is not too far after all the nuclear testing and everything too, so it kind of lines up. But it also lines up with a lot of stuff that if you follow this topic, then you know a lot of these things. You've heard a lot of these things before, whether it's some of these things are piloted by actual pilots. Some of them are piloted remotely. They're able to maneuver at a different type of speed and different. This is back in 1947. So the same type of stuff that they were saying in the hearing in 2023, this particular report was saying back in 1947. So even if we can all agree, well, I believe you can all agree that this is something you can see on the FBI site. So this is an actual document, regardless of who wrote it, right? So even if you think the person it could have been anybody, as that person said, it could have been somebody with no credentials, maybe so. But that person is saying the same shit that Fravor was saying. He's saying the same thing Graves was saying. He's saying the same thing Grush was saying back in 1947. Now the counter to that could be, well, maybe they read this document, and maybe that's how they came up with this information. Maybe this got leaked. Maybe they if it was declassified in 2010. Maybe that's what they read, and maybe that's what they said. I mean, I don't buy that, but you could say that. But back on track to where if you say, okay, look, this guy was saying this back in 1947 of what these things were capable of, the the interdimensional back and forth, the reason why. This is why when someone something that frustrated me recently, okay? So you may or may not know this. I don't know. I produced Katie Sackhoff's podcast for a long time. And then I started producing her Clips channel. So recently, she had on Neil deGrasse Tyson who, I'll preface it by saying, I think overall, Neil deGrasse Tyson is a very brilliant man. I think his thoughts on death, I think his thoughts on energy, I think his thoughts on the multiverse and all those things are fascinating. And I enjoy 95% of hearing him talk about certain things. When it comes to this subject, the man sounds like an imbecile. And the reason I say that is because it's definitive in how he speaks, where there's no proof, there's no this. This is someone who understands way more than I ever will about any which way quantum physics works. And here's this particular document in this FBI thing saying the interdimensional movement and how these things move, you can't fathom that as a human being. So isn't it possible? You don't have to say you believe, but isn't it possible this type of stuff is evidence? Because the reason I say that about him, he was talking about, well, in the age of the cell phone, how come we can't just record something and get good footage on it? From that document that I just read, if that is legit, does that sound like something that could just be picked up on an iPhone? Or do you think that they might have a slight advantage in technology on how to maneuver past that if they want? That's what I'm saying. Again, I think he's a brilliant, brilliant guy. That interview, that particular portion of the interview, made me want to slam my head into the ground. Not because you got to believe it all. On the contrary, you can still say, hypothetically, it's possible. Hypothetically, with the way quantum physics works and the bending of time and space, it's possible that if you had this kind of technology, you would be able to maneuver in and out of dimensions, especially from how knowledgeable he is about these types of things and the way that time and space work. So it's fascinating to me that he's so adamant on that particular thing. So brushing past that and the things that are in this document, and I've always thought, to me, interdimensional makes the most sense if it is something indeed. Because as we look at 3i Atlas and these other things, and I've mentioned this a billion times over, and I'm really saying this to the people if it's the first time you're watching it, that we know where 3i Atlas is in space. Because as fast as that thing is going, it's been moving for months, and we can track it because that's how time and space works. It's just slower, and you can see it. So if things are moving around from space, they're not zipping around out in space without somebody picking it up, and without it moving, if it's coming from light years away. But interdimensional, and the idea of bending time and space, and the way that a reference again to Neil deGrasse Tyson in that interview with Katie Sackhoff. He was talking about if the multiverse was indeed real and how it could work and how time and space could work if someone had technology to maneuver around that type of science, then isn't it physically possible? That's what I would like to ask him. If I was talking to him, that's what I would ask him. And I'm curious to see how adamant he is about it because he has such an understanding about that. But again, I don't want to just talk about him because, like I said, I happen to respect a lot of his opinions, and I think he's a very, very brilliant man. But that was just mind numbing listening to it. And if you want to listen to it, you should go to Katie's Clips channel and you can listen to him talk about it. But it was mind numbing. Again, more so because when you're reading that document that I just read to you, and I just read, if you do, well, again, it's legit. We know that it's an actual document that was declassified. And with all that information that lines up now, it's interesting. It becomes more and more interesting. Whether you hear from Grush in 2023, you hear from various people. Every time Luna talks about it, she talks about interdimensional stuff. You keep hearing interdimensional. You keep hearing that. And the way that what in this document, the way that it describes what the craft can do, and it describes what these things are here. And I thought that was another interesting thing. I'm talking about that, and you've heard this more so that they're peaceful than anything else. And it was something to go back, and another person that I'm not necessarily always on the same page with, but I've appreciated his take on how he has been going about the topic of UAPs, and that's Bill Maher. And Bill Maher brought up a good point that I think is true. If these things have been around for as long as people think that they have been around for, whether it's way before we were even here, right? If they have the type of technology that is capable of doing what that document said, what we think that bending time and space and all these things do, if they have that type of technology and they are that vastly superior to us, well, they could take us out like that if they wanted to. Like that. And they haven't. So when you're listening to that document and then saying that it's a peaceful thing, but then again, if there was an attack on that technology, they could easily take out anything. That was back in 1947, the type of technology. Even if a stealth bomb or anything else went up against it now too. But I think at that point from 1947 until now, if you listen to what David Grush was just talking about and the CIA programs and everything else too, you would assume that they have a pretty good understanding of what these things have been capable of, at least from 1947 on, because they've been paying attention to it since these things have been, I guess, more making themselves more aware, which if you line up some of these stories, it seems like that's when they started to really make themselves a little bit more public to the public, if you will, and more sightings happened. It could also have been the advancement of technology from us to see these things, and media and other things too. So I just thought this was a fascinating story, reading this document in general, because there was another one, and I guess I can combine it here, and I might just cover it tomorrow, but Leslie Kahn, who was part of that, or Kane, I guess I always say, so he's Kahn, the article in New York Times back in 2017, I got a lot of people interested in this topic in general. She was on a podcast recently. She said the more information, I guess, is going to, more proof of beings or other things is going to come this year. I think, paraphrasing, so I'd like to cover it tomorrow and actually hear the quote, but from what I saw, that seems to be it. So there's been a lot of people who said 2026 was going to be a kind of a major year. We've gotten more information every year, right? I mean, you have. More things have come out every year, and more people are talking, more things are happening. But the Grush showing back up is big. The claims he's making against people that were talking in Age of Disclosure about generals who knew a lot more. Someone made a good point. I don't know, I think it was on X. And he said that this is maybe one, it might have actually been Pavel, I'm not sure, but it said that this shows why Grush really didn't want to be in that, because there's kind of like softball questions that were being thrown. I don't necessarily know if that's the case why he wasn't. I think at the time they were making it, it was right when all that shit was going down with him, and he was just trying to stay out of the way and pick his spots, if you will. But I think, and you guys can tell me, someone asked me yesterday, so you run someone commented on the channel, and I like to address it on the comment section. He said, well, you run a UFO channel. Don't you think you should watch the Age of Disclosure? And I said, well, let me ask you, I didn't say this, but I'll ask this person now. Let me ask you a question. The things that came out of that documentary that changed the game, if there were any, were they covered at all in general out there? If so, what were they? And what was the major thing in that documentary that came out that we hadn't kind of covered before, that we haven't heard? For people inside of this space, not for casuals, which I think, again, had it been, instead of having rented it, people renting it, I think it would have been a lot more beneficial to people if they could have just seen it on Netflix or whatever it might have been. But what information was out there that was newer? There could be various answers that you can say, hey, bonehead, if you actually watch it, you'll cover stuff that no one else has covered. Because I can't believe that no one has covered this part of it, because it's groundbreaking and no one's talked about it. What is that? And should I go check it out now and make sure that I report it, because the information needs to get out there? I just felt, and it might have been because I'm a very big supporter of James Fox. I love what he does. I think that, to me, Moment of Contact is the one documentary that still has me just baffled. His latest documentary was, to me, a movie that people who don't know this space should see. And it was very similar to Age of Disclosure. I got a link to the James Fox one. I got a link to it. I was able to watch it through a link. And because I was interviewing him, I don't know if I would have purchased it. Because now, if Moment of Contact came out and it was $19.99 to purchase, you bet your ass I'm buying that thing. You bet your ass. If somebody else put out a documentary and said, this is stuff that is going to change the game, and there's new information out here, and the stuff that these people are saying, you can't believe it. I mean, Jeremy Corbell is going to be watching this thing because he doesn't know what the hell's going to be said. Of course, I'll be checking that out. But I want more people to cover this kind of stuff. I want more people to talk about this type of stuff, the interdimensional side of it, and this document. And I'm always baffled that a document like this from the FBI was released in 2010. And I'm covering it because UFO Mania on X posted it and not one of the major outlets. It's weird. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this today. What do you think about this document? Bullshit? Something to it? What's your overall thoughts on interdimensional beings? Is it a thing? Or is it just science fiction? Put your thoughts in there. Let me know. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Click like, comment, do all that and more. Thanks for being here today. We'll see you back here real soon. Bye-bye.